We're saved by grace, but we are to live a life of obedience toward God. Do you believe that, friends? I'm going to say it again. We are saved by grace, but we are to live a life of obedience toward God. So look this way. Metanoia. Stop. Change your concept of God and of sin. A radical change about God and about sin. Who He is, how to love Him, how to worship Him. No casual relationship here. Number one in your life, God. This good, wonderful, glorious God. And then have a radical concept and change in your thinking regarding sin. You know what you do regarding sin? You stop it. Charles Wesley said he breaks the power of cancel sin. Thank God for sin that's been forgiven and canceled, but you don't have to keep back doing it all the time. He breaks that power. And when metanoia comes along, it's not only to have a radical change of thinking about God and respect Him, but a radical change in your thinking about sin. Now, let me give you a couple of little examples. Well, I guess before I do, I've got to tell you about a preacher friend of mine I've known for over 30 years. He lives in America, although he's not actually an American. He came from overseas. He loves this country. He's been a pastor. And some time back he told me, he said, "Leslie, I've quit." I said, "You quit? What do you mean? You sick?" "No, great health." Sunday mornings he says, "I'm on the beach." He said, "I'm not coming back to church." I said, "Why are you not coming back to church?" He says, "I love God and I hate His kids." I said, "Wow, that's pretty honest, but it's also pretty awful." I don't hate any of God's kids, but I'm going to tell you something. Sometimes God's kids would drive you nuts. Or as we say in Ireland, would drive you batty. I don't know if you know that word. Maybe you do. Drive you batty. A couple of examples. This God, who is loving and kind and powerful and yet is to be respected, He says some things. For example, He says the tithe is the Lord's. Did you hear what I said? Now you may say, "Well, Lesty's trying to get another offering." Let me tell you, friends, you don't know me if you think that. I'm trying to help you. The truth is this: I've been in this full time for 50 years, and God met my needs. I don't want to be unkind. God met my needs before I ever met you. And if you quit me today, and I don't want you to do it, but if you do it, God will still meet my needs. You're nice people, but you're not my source. He is my source. I'm not trying to get an extra dime off you. I'm trying to help you. You got to have a new understanding of disobedience. God says tithe. You better tithe. Oh, it's kind of casual. Well, a tithe if I feel like it, you know. But I really can't tithe. I don't have much money anymore. You're lying. You're a liar. You're lying. Where'd you get the money to put in the car with gas to get here this morning? You're all dressed pretty good, and I'm sure you ate this morning, and you can't give God 1 cent? How much have you given this last week, this last month, this last 3 months? Go back. You're crazy, you're nuts, and you're driving me nuts. Not because I, as Paul said, desire a gift of you, but I want fruit to abound toward your account. I want you to be blessed, and you're not going to be blessed if you act like this. God, get a new concept of God. He's good, He's gracious, He's wonderful, He's great, but He also is not to be fooled with. You can't have a casual relationship. Well, you know, is that what He said? Oh, well, we'll see what we'll do about that. You know, what would it be if somebody handed you a key of a brand new car, Rolls Royce, and said, "It's yours, drive it away," and you said, "Wonderful," and you stepped into the back seat and tried to do this? You'd be like an idiot. If God tells you, do this, you do it. Jesus said, get a new radical understanding. And the understanding is this: the tithe is the Lord. And forgive me for the bluntness of my language, but you prove yourself an idiot when you say you can't do it, because if you did do it, the other 90% would go far further, and you would be blessed not only financially, you'll be blessed physically, spiritually, family-wise, domestically, every way, because you've got to have a new understanding. Just because God didn't hit you over the head when you quit tithing or when you won't do it, just because He didn't slay you, just because He didn't send a bolt of lightning and kill you, are you playing on His goodness? It's going to catch up with you one of these days. You need this blessing. You needed God's way. Jesus arrived on the scene and He said, you need a new concept of God. He wasn't traditional. He wasn't old in the contemporary sense. He was a wonderful God who was near. Jesus demonstrated Him. But He said, you also better understand about this thing called sin and this thing called disobedience. You know, when we were a little family in Ireland and we went to the little Nazarene church, there's up a hill, quite a steep hill. How many mornings did we go there through the snow? You're freezing cold, but you got there, rain. You know, in Ireland, it rains between the showers. It's a lot of moisture there. But it never struck you not to go to church. I'm amazed in America, this glorious country that I love so much. There's such a casual relationship to disobedience with God. You can disobey Him. You know what He says? Now listen to it carefully. Forget not the assembling of yourselves together. That means go to church and be taught God's Word. If you're not being taught it where you are, you ought to go somewhere where you will get taught. But you got to go to church. That's it, period. Now, wait a minute. If you're sick, that's totally different. If you're out of town on business, out of town on vacation, those are different. I'm talking about the casual attitude when you could be there and you don't show up for really no reason at all. What do you think you're doing? Are you an idiot or what? You say, I never heard preaching like this in my life. I wish I hadn't have come. Well, we got the doors locked. You better sit here and listen for a while. You're going to get this. Because just as sure that we have to raise up our Ebenezers and say how good God was, we also have to have metanoia, a new understanding of what it is to say, yes, sir, no, sir. Anything you say, sir. And if you say jump, sir, all I'll say is hi, hi, sir. But we've lost that. Nowadays, what we do, especially in Christian television, give them hope. Tell them how wonderful they are. So here's the ship that has capsized and the people are in the water and the bigger liner comes by and it has all the lifeboats, but it doesn't do that. It just shouts into the water, think positively. Believe in yourself. Have self-esteem. Have hope. It's garbage message. It's psychology in the church and it doesn't mean a thing. You've got to get a new understanding about this relationship with God. God is God, and He's not going to fool with your disobedience. And the Bible says He let it go for a while. The Bible even says He winked for a while. Just let it go. That's because of His mercy. But sooner or later, it catches up. And there's two sides. There's reciprocity, divine human reciprocity. We praise God for His goodness. And listen, we're scared to death to disobey Him. I was raised in Belfast, Ireland. He told me to come to America. I had been invited to America several times. Big, fabulous churches, just come and walk in. He said no. Then He sent us where there was nobody. So we built from scratch. But at least I know I'm in obedience to God. I'm obeying God. If I was back in Ireland, I would be out of God's will. How important is it to you to obey God? How can you live in disobedience? I heard about a preacher. This is a true story. Seems impossible. But here and there, to augment his salary, he would steal things. And when somebody asks, you know, what does Brother so-and-so do? Oh, it says he preaches and a little stealing on the side. But it's worse than that. We have believers today, you know what they can do? They can commit adultery. And it doesn't seem to mean anything. You ought to tremble. Why? Metanoia says you better get a new understanding, not only of the grace of God, but of the righteousness and the holiness of God. and quit fooling with sin and get a healthy attitude of walking with him. Now, if any man sins and falls, God is willing to forgive. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about a lifestyle of disobedience that we don't really care about. You better change. Metanoia. Metanoia. Jesus said, and I get it, you better do 180 and come back the other way in your concept of God and in your concept of disobedience to God. Is this too heavy for you? Are you willing to take some more or not? You don't always get this kind of a message, do you? But we're past due. You know what we're supposed to do regarding watching those dirty movies? Stop it. Period. You say, well, I was in a hotel room and it was on. Turn it off. Get the victory over the flesh. Right down to little things, and I don't want to become judgmental in a legalistic sense, but right down to things that destroy in your body, whether it's tobacco or alcohol. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Honor God. Put God first. And when you do that, you'll get a new understanding of God, a new understanding of those things that upset him. You'll start to walk with God, and you'll never experience any joy like it in your life until you're in that place of obedience with God. Pretty tough stuff. Metanoia. We all need a new understanding of God and stop this casual relationship where he doesn't really care. I just wanted to make one more reference, then we'll run on here, to the two obvious things. People who don't come to church for no real reason, say they're believers. I heard of one lady, it wasn't here, one lady, when somebody invited her to church, she was a Christian who went to that church, said, are you coming for tonight's service? Oh, she says, what's on? What has happened to the church? We have got Hollywoodism in the church. We've got to get a new vital relationship with God. Now, I feel like saying good morning, everybody. God richly bless you. But are you getting what I'm saying? Very serious stuff. I was a soccer player. He told me one day not even to talk about it. Yes, sir. That's it. You say, how did God tell you that? If you're walking with God, you'll get to the point where the Spirit of God, now listen to me, will start putting his finger on different things in your life. And others may be able to do those things, but you can't, for whatever reason. Let them drop off. If your right hand offend you, cut it off. If your right eye offend you, pluck it out. You'd be better to go into eternity less those things than have them and go into a lost eternity. Continue on the notes. Here are two interesting scriptures. Luke 18, verse 8, I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. God answering prayer, that is. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? When the Lord comes, will he find people who are truly dedicated? Proverbs 20, verse 6, most men will proclaim every one his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find? This teaching is all about our human responsibility. Look at Deuteronomy 8, verses 11 and 19. Beware, verse 11, that thou forget not. Same as saying, remember the good things, but forget not the Lord thy God, Yahweh Elohim, in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. What does it say? Beware! Run for cover! Do you want me to show you in this book where he said the tithe is the Lord's? And the biggest problem is we don't tithe, but we don't even feel convicted about it. No. We can go out and eat somewhere and spend money. We can spend money in different areas. We don't even feel the least bit convicted that we're violating what he says. Here's what to do. When you get that check, the top 10% off the top belongs to him. You do what he says. For it says here, beware. Deuteronomy 8 verse 19, and it shall be, if thou do at all forget the Lord thy God, and walk after other gods, and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish. You are missing so much blessing by your deliberate, continued disobedience. Don't tell me you can't. Then you're not only disobeying, but you're hiding behind a lie. Metanoia. There is a great Greek word it says used in the New Testament. It is metanoia. It is usually translated as repentance. Repentance should not be confused with penance. In other words, it's not just emotion. It's all right to have the emotion, but it means it's a change of action and direction. Metanoia usually embraces, or really embraces, three great truths. Change your mind, that's what Jesus called for. Change your direction, and change your actions. We are to change our minds primarily about God and about disobedience to God or sin. A new concept of how good God is, but then don't think He's an old fool. We are not to be casual in our relationship with God. Can somebody say amen to that? We are not to be casual in our relationship with God. We must obey. We must learn to hate sin, which is anything that gets between us and God. I think that's all right to repeat that. We must learn to hate sin, which is anything that gets between us and God. Well, I have no time to pray. Time to watch TV? You're lying. Jesus and John the Baptist talked about repentance, metanoia. A new understanding of God's goodness, but a new understanding that it's a serious thing to disobey Him. He's so good.